PFL 6 this Friday from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We've got the Featherweights and the Welterweights here for the final regular season event of the PFL here in 2024. In the main event, Loughnane, the former champion, takes on Justin Gonzales. And no, Logan Storley is not facing Laureano Staropoli anymore. He gets Luca Poclit instead. We'll talk about that fight as we move on. We only have 11 fights in this card as 2 were just canceled. So let's do it. We've got 11 fights again for the PFL this Friday night. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here on the channel. Yesterday we posted our UFC 303 predictions with Alex Pereira and Yuri Prochazka's rematch for the light heavyweight championship. Go check that video out. Link is in the description down below. Let's get into the first here of these 11 fights. Starting things off in the featherweight division, we've got Tyler Diamond taking on Brett Johns. First fight of the night, we're going to go with Brett Johns to win the fight by decision. Now, originally, this was supposed to be Brett Johns taking on Adam Borch, and that was supposed to be, that was going to be a good fight. It was a fight that was going to decide if Borch was going to make the playoffs or not. Instead, Brett Johns gets Tyler Diamond, who was supposed to take on Jose Perez on this card as a feature bout or showcase fight. Now we've got Johns and Diamond in the season. For Tyler Diamond, this is a guy who's 2-2 in the PFL. Last year, won on his first fight, 2 years ago, won in his first fight in 2021 against Sung Bin Jo, then lost to Loughnane in his second fight by majority decision. Came back in 2023, lost to Movlid Khabibulov by second round arm triangle choke in 2023. Came back in 2024, won against Otto Rodriguez on one of those showcase bouts to be an alternate for the season. And here he is, here against Brett Johns. Of course, Tyler Diamond, a former UFC guy. He had one fight over there, lost to Bryce Mitchell, fought on the Ultimate Fighter Season 27. Taking on Brett Johns, another former UFC name who did go 5-2 in the UFC. It was kind of an interesting departure for him from the promotion. He came into Bellator, lost to Danny Sabatello, beat Khizriev Kaharov, the PFL Europe champion, gave him his first loss, beat Jordan Witzke, won his next fight in PFL Europe, and then coming off a loss to Timur Khizriev. Of course, Khizriev, I think one of the favorites of this season for the 145-pound division. We'll talk about him as the video progresses, but in this fight, I'm going to go with Brett Johns beat Tyler Diamond. I think the ground game is going to be too good. Again, Tyler Diamond's going to want to keep the fight on the feet. I think Brett Johns obviously going to want to keep the fight on the ground or get the fight on the ground. I think he is going to excel in doing so. So I'm going to take Brett Johns going here and pick up the victory. Again, only really good guys have beat Brett Johns, and when you really look at it, really good wrestlers have been able to out-grapple him. I don't think, again, Tyler Diamond, that's not really what he does. Tyler Diamond's going to want to try to strike with him. Yes, he does have a ground game, but I don't think Tyler Diamond can wrestle and he can grapple. He's got submission wins in the past, right? He did that on his way to the PFL. He did that in the Ultimate Fighter. Sure, I just don't think he's able to out-grapple Brett Johns, meaning his best pathway to success is going to be on the feet. I don't think that is going to be enough, and I do think Brett Johns goes out here and picks up the win by decision. As we look at the table, it doesn't really do much if we're being honest. Brett Johns will have 3 points, but everyone on the left side of the table, except for now Adam Borch, will have an opportunity to pick up points. Loughnane, Braga, Khizriev, Kamaka all have a chance to pick up points, and Khizriev and Kamaka have the same amount of points as Johns does currently. So we'll see how this progresses as we go on to our next fight here. In the welterweight division, we have got Madge taking on Neiman Gracie. We're going with Madge to win the fight by second round TKO. Now, when this season started, did I expect Madge to make the playoffs? No, I didn't. But we are taking him to win this fight by second round TKO just because Neiman Gracie's been very bad recently. I think he's kind of figured out, truly, right? He's lost back-to-back fights now to Gochi Yamauchi. I understand he had a win over Dante Shiro in between, but I don't think he's able to get Madge down. It's just, Gracie's just looked so slow recently. He hasn't been able to get fights down to the mat, and he's just been beat everywhere. Again, Neiman Gracie, to me, has truly just been figured out, right? He looked, the John Fitch win was the peak of Neiman Gracie's career, if I'm being honest with you. Then he loses to Jason Jackson, then he beats Mark Lemminger, but then back-to-back losses to Storley and Gochi Yamauchi, and then a win over Dante Shiro, a loss to Gochi Yamauchi. Madge is coming off of a first-round submission win over Brennan Ward. Again, Madge can strike, he can grapple. I think eventually, again, he's going to get, and he's going to find that shot and get Neiman Gracie out of there on the feet. I don't think, again, it doesn't make sense for him to want to grapple with Gracie. Obviously, I think he's going to keep the fight on the feet, and with that being said, I do think eventually he will get the finish. So I am going to take Madge to win the fight by second round TKO. At 35 years of age, I'll just be honest with you, what can Neiman Gracie do, honestly, at this point at 35 years old? He's lost, I mean, we can check how many he's lost out of his last however many fights, but truly, the guy has lost 4 out of his last 6 fights. I just don't think there's much potential for him left in the sport. I think Don Madge is the superior fighter. I think he keeps the fight standing and he will knock out Gracie. Is the reason Madge is sitting at minus 455 on the odds. He will get the finish in the second round. As we look at the table, Don Madge has clinched his spot in the 2024 welterweight playoffs. He will have 11 points. He is currently in first place, and that is going to be tough for anyone to beat. Obviously, Musaev and Ramazanov will have a chance to, get that number 1 seed, but at the very worst, Don Madge is the number 2 seed in the PFL playoffs. Again, I didn't think it was going to happen, but here we are. Don Madge in first place for now. I like the favorable matchup for him against Neiman Gracie. Okay, we're going to our next one here in the featherweight division. We've got Kai Kamaka III taking on Pedro Carvalho. I'm taking Kai Kamaka III to win the fight by second round TKO. Just because Pedro Carvalho is not very good, and he just got knocked out. I understand the stoppage was very early. It was a very early stoppage against Brendan Loughnane. However, I did think Loughnane eventually was going to get that finish if the fight did not get stopped. If Kevin McDonald didn't stop the fight, eventually, again, I think Loughnane was going to get that finish in the first round. Pedro Carvalho, though, just took that damage 2 months ago. Immediately, you're coming back and fighting Kai Kamaka III. Also, Pedro Carvalho's lost 4 out of 5 fights. The fight that doesn't make sense is Mads Burnell. It didn't make sense at the time. It really still doesn't make sense either. Burnell just beat Clay Collard, but Clay Collard doesn't have a ground game to save his life, so obviously that happened. And again, I picked Collard, but again, now I think we've really seen, okay, Collard truly can't grapple. He's going to get dusted in the playoffs when he takes on who is the 1 seed. It is Brent Primus. He is going to get absolutely melted in that fight when the playoffs do come. But for Carvalho, right, one win out of his last 5. You've got losses to Loughnane by knockout. Aaron Pico got him with ground and pound. Jeremy Kennedy lost to Jeremy Kennedy by decision. Beats Mads Burnell and loses to Piotr Nildeski by split decision. He's now getting Kai Kamaka, who did win a fight against Bubba Jenkins. He won 2 rounds to 1. Again, Bubba Jenkins was able to get takedowns. Kai Kamaka was winning on the feet. Jenkins really didn't do much with his takedowns, and Kai Kamaka III basically won off damage. And again, Kai Kamaka really coming into his own, right? His only loss since leaving the UFC is Justin Gonzales in a razor-thin split decision fight. Since then, he's won 4 in a row, right? It was always questionable. We've talked about this every single time Kai Kamaka III fights, but it was always questionable him being cut by the UFC in the first place. He had a very close fight against TJ Brown. He arguably beat Danny Chavez, and they got rid of him, and now he has excelled under the PFL/Bellator banner. And I think he's going to win again. Again, this is a very favorable matchup for him. And yes, Kai Kamaka has 1 knockout victory in his entire career. It's a TKO win back at Bellator 289 against Kevin Bohm, right? There's only 1 in his entire career. I think he gets it here against Pedro Carvalho. I just don't think Carvalho is very good. And I think Kamaka is able to land on the chin, and I do think he's able to win the fight again by second round TKO. So we're taking it for his second ever finish on the feet in his career, but still, or by strikes. But there you have it. Kai Kamaka III came into this fight with 3 points after his unanimous decision victory over Bubba Jenkins. He will pick up 5 more, putting Kai Kamaka III in first place here in the PFL standings in the 145-pound division, and he has clinched his spot in the playoffs. Kai Kamaka III goes from being cut by the UFC to now into the PFL playoffs. Is it very reminiscent of Impa Kasanganay? It kind of is. He hasn't been as dominant as Impa's been, but still, Kai Kamaka III, he will definitely get in, I think, with a decision. But this, again, would go a long way for him, a finish win over Carvalho. And if he's going to get a finish, it will be against Carvalho. We're taking Kai Kamaka III to win by second round TKO. Okay, to our next one. In the welterweight division, Gochi Yamauchi taking on Andrei Koreshkov in this fight. I'm going to go with Koreshkov to win the fight by decision. Now, again, Gochi Yamauchi's coming off a win over Neiman Gracie. That's great, but Neiman Gracie, we just talked about it, is just not very good at this point, right? Okay, Gochi Yamauchi has won 4 out of 5. The only loss being to Michael Venom Page. I was actually at that fight, and it was just a leg kick. Yamauchi messes up his leg. He can't fight. Koreshkov coming off a unanimous decision loss to Magomed Umalatov. Yes, he loses the fight, but that's a tough fight. It is, right? That's a very tough fight to have. Before that, for Koreshkov, a split decision victory over Lorenz Larkin over in Japan. He's got wins outside of Bellator, in Bellator. I still think Koreshov's decent enough to the point where I think he's able to keep this fight on the feet against Yamauchi, and I think he's able to outstrike him, right? Yamauchi's striking has been getting better, obviously, right? He had the knockout finish win over Chris Gonzales. He had the uppercut win over Neiman Gracie, and he was able to outstrike, again, Gracie in those fights. But I don't think he's able to get Koreshkov down. And if he does, I don't think he's able to do enough damage down there. And on the feet, I do think Andrei Koreshkov is the better striker, obviously. I think that goes without saying. And it's just a shame, again, Koreshkov ran into Umalatov in his first fight. It was just a very tough matchup for him. And Umalatov, I would say, is the favorite to win things at 170 pounds right now. Again, the guy is still undefeated, right? He never got his chance to win the championship last year because he withdrew from the fight with Magomed Karamov. Again, this is a 15-0 guy in Magomed Umalatov who, is one of the better PFL fighters in this weight class. It's just a tough matchup for Koreshkov to have. And again, he lost it. But this is a guy, again, who's been there, done that. This is a guy who's had 20 fights in Bellator in the past, right? The man fought Ben Askren back in the day. He's a former Bellator welterweight champion. Again, he lost it to Douglas Lima. He's lost twice to Lima, but still... I think Koreshov's able to go out there and outstrike Gochi Yamauchi. And really for Koreshkov, unless he's able to finish Yamauchi, which I don't think he's able to, he's playing spoiler in this fight. We are taking the underdog in this fight, Andrei Koreshkov, though, to win the fight by unanimous decision. Again, playing spoiler is the key here. Koreshkov, with his 3 points, will get himself into 5th place. He is mathematically pretty much eliminated with this decision victory, but he does eliminate Gochi Yamauchi in the process, which kind of does make it kind of apparent who the 4 guys in the playoffs are going to be, kind of like the heavyweight division where you've got 3 Russians and a non-Russian fighter in the heavyweight division is Tim Johnson. It's going to be Don Madge in this one, but again, stick with us. There's a chance Logan Storley can still make the playoffs as well. Same can be said with Brennan Ward, but we're going to go with Koreshkov to win the fight by decision. I think he's able to keep the fight on the feet. I think he's able to have his way with Neiman Gracie. However, I don't think he's able to get a finish. Okay, to our next one. Featherweight division, Timur Khizriev taking on Enrique Barzola, another undefeated Russian fighter. We're going to have a lot of those coming up. We're going to have 3 in our next 2 fights, but Khizriev taking on Enrique Barzola is an interesting fight. But it's just ultimately a very tough fight for Barzola. I think Khizriev, again, is the favorite to win things at 145 pounds. I think he is. Sure, yeah, Brendan Loughnane. But Khizriev's very good. And now, again, his style doesn't necessarily... It's not favorable in the PFL format because, again, they favor guys who get finishes. I'll say this all the time. The big thing with the PFL is 1 first-round knockout victory has more weight in the standings than 2 decision victories. That's just how it goes. But if you're just able to get in the playoffs, like Khizriev is likely able to with a win over Enrique Barzola, he's fine, and all he's got to do is keep winning by decision to become the PFL champion and win $1 million. Now, when you look at what Khizriev's done, again, undefeated in Bellator, 3-0, unanimous decision victory over Daniel Weichel, win over Richie Smolin, a win over Justin Gonzales, who's in the main event, and a win over Brett Johns in the first PFL fight of this season. He's getting Enrique Barzola, who can grapple, he can wrestle, but we have seen him out-grappled by Magomed Magomedov, which I understand, very good fighter in his own right. But again, we've seen him out-grappled by Magomed Magomedov in the past. I think Khizriev is just able to put on the wrestling boots and just give Enrique Barzola hell. Again, this is a guy fighting out of Makachala, Dagestan. You know what they do. They are trying to go in there, and they are trying to get you on the ground and put you on your back. And Barzola is not getting any younger as well. The guy's 35 years old, fighting at 145 pounds. Khizriev's 28. He's the much younger fighter. I just think he gives Barzola a lot of problems on the mat in this fight. Again, Khizriev is built for these, grind him out 3-round decisions, and that's exactly what he's going to do on this fight. Again, I think he's a very tough guy to beat at 145 pounds just because of his style and looking at the other fighters in this league or in the standings. Yeah, everything really does favor Timur Khizriev to win this season. We will see how it goes down the stretch here, but I'm taking Timur Khizriev to win. And yeah, it keeps him in 4th place because Gabriel Braga's 1 first-round knockout victory holds more weight than Khizriev's 2 decisions. Now, it is entirely possible Khizriev can miss the playoffs and again, he would be in trouble if Adam Borch didn't pull out of his fight, but he can miss the playoffs if Justin Gonzales or Bubba Jenkins are able to get first-round finishes. They would then jump Khizriev in the standings and eliminate Khizriev from the playoffs. We will see what happens, but for now, we're taking Timur Khizriev to win the fight by unanimous decision. Okay, moving on to the welterweight division. We have got very interesting matchmaking here. Murad Ramazanov taking on Shamil Musaev. It's very weird this fight's happening. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I clown on PFL and Bellator matchmaking a lot because they kind of put the guys they want in the playoffs, especially the PFL. They book guys they want in the playoffs against favorable matchups. And you can kind of tell the 4 guys they want in the playoffs. But I don't understand why you put your 2 undefeated Russian prospects up against each other on the undercard. And 2 guys who, let's just keep it how it is, will likely make the playoffs regardless of what happens. But both these guys are undefeated, taking each other on the undercard. It's really interesting. It truly is. And when you look at both these guys, right, Shamil Musaev, Murad Ramazanov, Ramazanov is a guy coming out of Makhachkala. Musaev is out of Russia too, but he's out of, forgive me for this, he's out of Mystichi, Russia. I'll be honest with you, I don't know my Russian geography. I know where Dagestan is, but that's about it. I know where Moscow is. I don't know where Mystichi, Russia is, I'll be honest with you. However, again, both 2 undefeated Russian fighters. Musaev looked very good in the Logan Storley fight. Absolutely melted the guy. Made Storley look like he didn't belong in there. And again, Musaev undefeated, 3-0 in KSW, right? This is a guy who at one point was booked against Mateus Gamrot. Fight didn't happen as Musaev got injured. Really would have liked to see that fight to see kind of where Musaev is at. And for Ramazanov, right, he's won the PFL before. Again, just won his fight. He has 6 points because he beat Laureano Staropoli by rear naked choke. He fought Roberto Soldic in 1, but the fight got stopped after a groin strike 2 minutes into the fight, so it's a no contest. But right, Ramazanov coming from 1. You got Musaev from KSW. Really weird these guys are taking each other on right now. Now, where do I think both these guys stand in this fight? I think Ramazanov's got the better grappling game, and I think Musaev obviously has the better striking game. Musaev looked very good in the Logan Storley fight, wobbled the guy a million times again, made Storley look like he truly didn't belong in there, and truly, I understand these guys don't have the biggest names, but this is the fight that should be in the co-main event and not Logan Storley, Luka Poclit. This should be the fight that is in the co-main. However, it's stuck buried on the undercard. This is a very interesting fight. And again, both these guys will likely have another fight in the PFL season regardless of the outcome here. I'm taking Shamil Musaev to win. I'm taking him to win by decision. I think he is going to have a little bit of problems with Ramazanov's wrestling. Now, again, he didn't really have problems with Logan Storley's wrestling, but I do think Ramazanov will clinch him up, will get him back against the fence, and just will make it hard for Musaev to get off his explosive striking. But again, when the fight is on the feet and when the 2 guys are separated and they're not in close, that's where I do think Musaev gets those points, and that's where I think he wins the fight. I don't think he gets the finish, even though, yes, he has had very limited decisions in his career. He's got, 2 times as many knockouts as he does decisions in his professional mixed martial arts career. However, I do think Ramazanov's a very tough guy to put away. Again, an undefeated fighter who's won 4 times by knockout, 4 times by submission, 4 times by decision. Again, I think he's tough. I don't think Musaev's able to get the finish. I do think Ramazanov will get takedowns, and I do think he will give Musaev problems down there. But as a whole, I do think Musaev wins in the feet, and I do think he will outpoint Ramazanov to victory. So it's going to be Shamil Musaev to win the fight by unanimous decision. For me, making him the favorite now, either him or Magomed Umalatov in the 170-pound division, as Musaev jumps to second place in the standings. Ramazanov with his 6 points basically has still clinched a playoff spot. Logan Storley would need to get a finish in under 4 minutes to replace Ramazanov in the standings, and that would be if Magomed Umalatov wins, but I mean, Umalatov's facing Brendan Ward. I think we know what's going to happen in that fight. But anyways, Ramazanov's still in a very good spot. Musaev's clinched a playoff spot with his 8 points. He will be in second place for now. Again, we will see what happens in the Magomed Umalatov Brendan Ward fight, and same can be said with Poclit and Logan Storley. To our next one here, a showcase bout. Lorenz Larkin returns, and he's on the PFL. He's on this PFL card, and he's taking on a guy who doesn't have a picture here on the PFL website. It's Alan Dominguez from Mexico. Dominguez is 11-6. This is a guy who has fought in Lux. He's 8-4 over there, coming off a 3-fight winning streak. He is the Lux welterweight champion. He's coming off of a unanimous decision victory over Naib Lopez, who you might remember from the PFL season last year. Lopez was a guy who went 1-1 in the PFL. He beat Shane Mitchell in his first fight, then lost to Magomed Umalatov by decision to eliminate him from the playoffs. So honestly, not a horrible fighter in Naib Lopez. It was his second ever professional mixed martial arts loss when he lost to Alan Dominguez in Lux. Again, Dominguez has a loss to Sergio Casio by guillotine choke in the first round. Casio is a guy who just beat Anthony Romero last week on the PFL. However, This is a tough fight for Dominguez, just because Larkin hits very hard. That's just what he does. And yeah, Larkin's 37 years old. However, he's still got some left in the tank, and I do think he's able to put away Alon Dominguez. Dominguez's real weak spot, though, is on the ground. Now, again, Larkin does not have a submission victory in his entire career. That's not what he does. He is in there to stand, and he is in there to knock you out, and that's why we have Larkin to win by first-round knockout. But I'm just saying, like, any other fighter would have a very clear advantage against Alon Dominguez on the ground. He is very bad down there. Again, Cosio submitted him. Some other guys have submitted him. He is a primary striker. Larkin's a primary striker. And this is why this fight isn't opening up the card. This is why this fight is the featured prelim. Because, again, this should be a, all-action type of fight. Both these guys are looking to knock each other out. In my opinion, Larkin's the better striker, and he has more power. Larkin, of course, is way more experienced. He's been in this spot before. Dominguez's first fight, I believe, in America. And I do think Larkin goes out here and wins this fight. I do think he will knock out Alon Dominguez. But again, this is why this fight's here, because someone will probably get knocked out, whether it be Larkin or Dominguez. I think it's Dominguez getting knocked out, so that's why we're going to take Larkin in this showcase bout to win the fight by first-round knockout. On to the main card. We start things off in the featherweight division. Gabriel Braga takes on Bubba Jenkins. I am very split on this pick, incredibly split. I usually always take Bubba Jenkins. I am a big Bubba Jenkins guy. However, I'm taking Gabriel Braga to win the fight. Why? Because of the Kamaka Bubba Jenkins fight, right? Jenkins won moments in the ground, but he didn't do much damage in that fight. And on the flip side, Kamaka was outstriking him when the fight was in the feet. I don't think Bubba Jenkins outstrikes Gabriel Braga. I think Bubba Jenkins is kind of limited just to his wrestling in this fight, meaning all Gabriel Braga's got to do is win moments in the feet. I would not, again, if I'm Braga, I'm not entirely concerned about Bubba Jenkins submitting him. I don't think Jenkins is going to be able to get a submission against Braga. And yes, Braga's grappling game is a little bit unproven. He has faced Chris Wade in the past. Wade gave him a little bit of, pushback with the wrestling. But I do think Braga is able to keep the fight standing, and I think he's able to win that way. Jenkins will get takedowns in this fight. He will. But it's just, I think the damage that Braga is able to do on the feet will do a lot more in the judges' minds than the takedowns Jenkins is able to get, because I do think Braga eventually will be able to pop back up to his feet. And that's, again, it's a hard pick for me because I do like Bubba Jenkins a lot. I hope they bring him back for the season next year, even though he would be 0-2 in this season. But he's still a pretty good wrestler who can get fights down to the mat. I just think, again, it's an incredibly tough matchup for him. I don't think Braga gets a finish. I understand he got the first round knockout finish against Justin Gonzales in his last fight. I mean, of course, Gonzales is turning that around against the power puncher and Brendan Loughnane, but it is what it is. Again, the PFL's got to get Loughnane in the playoffs, even though he would be in regardless of what happens. But again, I think Braga's striking is just better than Jenkins. Again, Jenkins did get knocked out by Jesus Pinedo in the playoffs last year. Brendan Loughnane knocks him out in 2022 as well. He's a little bit chin. He's been finished 4 times on the feet in his entire career. Gorky Karahanyan finished him back in Bellator in 2016 on the feet. I don't think Braga's able to get that finish. I think he is able to go out there, though, and win the fight by decision. I think he just outpoints Bubba Jenkins. He'll keep the fight standing and really not allow Bubba to get going on the ground, even if, again, Braga does give up those takedowns, which I do think he will at some point. I just think the damage Braga is able to do on the feet will outweigh what Bubba Jenkins does on the ground in this fight. So as we look at the standings here, Gabriel Braga has, of course, clinched the playoff spot with this victory. He is currently in first place with 9 points. Kamaka in second with 8. Brendan Loughnane currently in third with 6. And Timur Khizriev in fourth with 6. With this being said, this fight has now clinched Brendan Loughnane a playoff spot, because even if he loses to Justin Gonzales, and Gonzales gets a first-round finish, that win by Gonzales has more weight than 2 wins by Khizriev, meaning Loughnane would still be in at 1-1, and Gonzales would jump Khizriev instead. But again, we'll see what happens in that Loughnane-Justin Gonzales fight. But this fight, again, with Braga's victory, this has clinched a playoff spot for Brendan Loughnane in the 2024 playoffs. Okay, we move on to the welterweight division. Magomed Umalatov taking on Brennan Ward in the welterweight division. It goes without, again, this was a pretty obvious pick. We're going with Magomed Umalatov to win the fight by first-round knockout. Brennan Ward's lost back-to-back. I thought he was actually going to beat Don Madge. That didn't go our way, obviously. Lost to Logan Storley before that. Brennan Ward, say what you want, though, about the guy. He is going to be more than willing to stand and bang with Magomed Umalatov. He will. I just think Umalatov connects in the chin before Brennan Ward does. Umalatov, I do think, is the better striker, and that's why right here we are picking him to win the fight by first-round knockout. But I do think this is a very fun fight for however long it does last. Because Brennan Ward, again, I think he's going to know the circumstances around this fight, what he needs to accomplish going into this fight to make the playoffs. He needs to get a first-round finish victory over Magomed Umalatov. That's what he needs, right? Quick look at the standings, right? He would need to finish Magomed Umalatov faster than what Ramazanov got his finish against Laureano Staropoli. So Brennan Ward needs to finish in under 4 minutes to make the playoffs here. So he's going to go for broke. That's what's going to happen in this fight. I think Umalatov counters him and knocks him out, though. Like, Ward is a little bit wild on the feet. Yes, he's got a lot of power, but I just think overall Magomed Umalatov's better on the feet. So I am going to take Umalatov. I think he's going to catch him with a check hook and probably put him down. So with that being said, we'll take a look back at the standings here. Magomed Umalatov puts himself in second place here in the PFL welterweight division. Obviously, his last fight, he went out there and beat Koreshkov by decision. He had 3 points going into this fight, and now he's clinched a playoff spot with 6 more points. He'll be in second place behind Madge, who has clinched now the number 1 seed in the PFL playoffs. It will all come down to Logan Storley's fight coming up next against Luka Poclit. If that fight ends prior to the 4-minute mark, the winner of that fight will jump Ramazanov in the playoffs and be in the playoffs. We'll see what happens. I will talk about those scenarios in a minute because that fight is about to happen. But for now, we have Magomed Umalatov clinching a playoff berth. He is in second place in the PFL welterweight division with those 9 points. And again, Madge has now clinched the 1-seed. Actually, he did that a long time ago. But still, let's go on to our next one here, welterweight division. Logan Storley. And I understand, again, it says, I found out this fight is now on as soon as I was starting to make this video. That's why Luka Poclit has the Argentinian flag, because it's supposed to be it's supposed to be Staropoli. I know Poclit is from Moldova, but again, I just literally just put his picture right on top of Staropoli here. But Luka Poclit gets a chance to make the playoffs, and he gets it against Logan Storley. However, I don't think either of these guys make the playoffs. Because the way that one of these guys are going to make the playoffs in this fight would be if either Storley's taking on a guy who can't wrestle, can't grapple, really lost. If this would be, seriously, the way that Ramazanov would be screwed would be if this was Storley versus a very good striker. Because it is a double-ended coin. Either Storley takes the guy down, gets his ground and pound, or gets a submission, or the striker knocks him out. Because Storley is coming off a fight where he took so much damage against Shamil Musaev. He got finished in the second round. He got knocked down multiple times in that fight. The fight, maybe again, like he was practically out of there already in the first round. And now he's taken on Poclit, who is a grappler, though. I don't think either guy gets a finish in this one. I'm going Logan Storley by decision. I do think Storley's a better wrestler. And I think, okay, from a straight winning standpoint, this fight is very good for Logan Storley. You just got knocked out 2 months ago. You're fighting now again in South Dakota. It is your hometown, even though I went to school at Minnesota, but still, again, he's from South Dakota, right? That's why he's in the co-main event. That is the only reason he's there. Again, the fight card is in South Dakota, and that's where Storley's from, right? He main evented there against Brennan Ward like last year or two ago in Bellator, right? But in terms of, again, winning a fight, this fight does favor Storley a lot. Now, in his original fight with Laureano Staropoli, I was going to take Storley to win by finish. I was going to take him, though, by second round finish. I didn't think he was able to get a finish quicker than Ramazanov did. However, it would have been entirely possible. Staropoli has no ground game, and it really would have helped Storley a lot if he were to get that fight. Because, again, Poclit does have a ground game. He's a pretty good BJJ player. However, I think Storley is better, though. I think Storley's wrestling is better than Luka Poclit's. I don't know how entertaining this fight is, if I'm being honest with you. This has the capability of Storley just winning the fight, out-grappling him, out-wrestling him, having top positioning, and really just controlling him, and the fight's not all that great. But Storley wins, right? It's a very good chance that's what this fight is. And again, I just don't see how we get a quick finish in this fight. I don't see it. I don't see especially how we get it under 4 minutes. I don't think Poclit submits him that quickly, and I don't think Storley's able to get enough ground and pound off in 4 minutes after getting a takedown in order to make the playoffs. So, with that being said, originally, again, I had Logan Storley with 5 points. That's why he's in fifth place. I mean, he's still technically tied for 5th place, but Logan Storley with 3 points puts him in 5th, and your playoffs are set now for the PFL welterweight division. Madge will take on Ramazanov in the first round, and then you've got Magomed Umalatov taking on Shamil Musaev in a very good fight. The 2-3 matchup here is very good. like, again, if that happens, I think they will cross paths eventually. I have it happening in the semifinals. That is a fight I'm very excited for. Magomed Umalatov and Shamil Musaev. Two undefeated guys in the playoffs. Winner goes to the championship. Yes, sign me up for that. Truly, sign me up for that. And that's why I'm excited for Musaev Ramazanov as well. But again, we've got a main event to go to. So here we go in the featherweight division. Brendan Loughnane taking on Justin Gonzales. This fight is kind of easy to pick. Brendan Loughnane by first round knockout, right? It just is. He's a minus 700 favorite for a reason, right? And Justin Gonzales just got knocked out 2 months ago. He just got knocked out against Gabriel Braga, and Justin Gonzales has lost 3 straight fights. And now here he is main eventing a PFL card. We're taking Brendan Loughnane by first round knockout. Everything points to Loughnane just going in there and absolutely rolling through this guy. That's, again, Gonzales just got knocked out 2 months ago by Gabriel Braga. Loughnane's coming off a first-round knockout victory against Pedro Carvalho. I understand the fight before that, he got chinned by Jesus Pinedo, but again, Pinedo's nowhere to be found after he dropped out of his PFL versus Bellator fight in Saudi Arabia earlier this year. Loughnane's just better. Loughnane is a way better striker, and this fight will be on the feet. Again, it's going to be a stand-up fight. And big surprise, who's going to win the stand-up fight between Loughnane and Gonzales? And oh, by the way, Loughnane's coming off a fight where he's got all the confidence in the world. He got his confidence back by winning by 86-second knockout, taking on a guy who just got knocked out in the first round 2 months ago. Again, this is a very clear pick, and it's a very obvious pick. Brendan Loughnane by first-round knockout. Again, he will get back-to-back quick sixes. Loughnane will have 12 points. As we look at the standings here, there you have it. Loughnane in first place with 12 points. Braga in second with 9. Kamaka in third with 8. And Timur Khizriev in fourth with 6. Yeah, that's the matchup. It is a tough matchup for Loughnane. Yes, he has doubled the point total of Timur Khizriev, but that's his opponent in the first round of the playoffs. And as well, we have Gabriel Braga taking on Kai Kamaka III. But again, with this fight with Loughnane, I get it. Straight up, he's the better striker. Straight up, he's got more power. And on top of that, it makes all the sense in the world to pick Loughnane by first round knockout, considering, again, Gonzales just got knocked out by Gabriel Braga in the first round as well. Everything points to a Brendan Loughnane first round knockout victory, and that's exactly what we're going to here. It is a stand-up fight that Loughnane will win, and Loughnane would have won if it wasn't for these guys coming off a fight just 2 months ago. But with that being added, it makes you all the more confident to pick Brendan Loughnane to go out there and win the fight by first round knockout. So there you have it. Brendan Loughnane wins the main event by first round knockout. And folks, thank y'all for watching our PFL Sioux Falls, South Dakota, our PFL number 6 event predictions here on the channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like, and make sure to comment if you do, or make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. We'll be back for more PFL. I believe not till August the playoffs do start. So we'll be back for those 3 straight weeks. Or I think actually there's 1 week, and then I think the first week of the playoffs, then a week off, and then they go to the light heavyweights. And the lightweights, and then of course this one with the featherweights and the welterweights. But we'll be back again in August for that. UFC coming at you every single week. Of course, next week the week off, but after that, UFC Denver with Rose Namajunas and Macy Barber in the main event. So stay tuned to the channel for more MMA, folks. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoy the video. Again, we'll be back for, I forgot, PFL Mania as well. I believe they have a card in July, so stay tuned for that, folks. Thank you for watching, and Mamba forever.